I've been in the finance sector of mining commodities now for over 25 years. So you're always going to have cycles, typically depending on the commodity. People sort of talk about sort of 6 to 8 year cycles, and we've certainly seen them. An amazing, sort of when China started to urbanize. And one of the great things, we can all be critical of China for some reasons, but one of the great things in that urbanization process, they've dragged millions and millions of people out of poverty. But when they first started, for example, in about 2002, being a net importer of coal and iron ore as opposed to an exporter of coal as they were back then, we've seen some amazing growth in commodities and resources. But my experience is that, and we managed at Taurus, for our first two funds, they were equity funds, a lot of volatility, which you see through the cycles with prices rising and lowering. And we decided to go into debt because if you've got long-term facilities that you can ride out the cycles. We don't require hedging, what we do at Taurus, so you need to be able to ride out cycles as long as what you're lending to is in that bottom 50%, hopefully the bottom quartile. So that's our experience, and our experience has paid off thus far. Look, we try to stick to commodities that have got major markets, they've got terminal markets, and they're large, and so you can't have an individual country that dominates a particular commodity. So we do try and avoid, for example, sometimes cobalt, rare earths, graphite, which can be dominated by, for example, China, who's a major producer. So we're very happy with precious metals. We've got a lot of experience in precious metals, and we've done a lot in West Africa, which is a phenomenal, gold mineralized area of Africa. Base metals, and obviously base metals is terrific. So copper, nickel, lead, zinc, they're tin. Metallurgical coal is very much on our agenda, and we focus on particularly Queensland for metallurgical coal. And also we look at industrial minerals. So whether it's in the fertilizer sector, phosphate, potash, mineral sands, they're the type of sort of commodities we look at. Look, all the talk at the moment, as we go to COP26, is battery minerals, and there's no doubt that that's going to be phenomenal. So whether it's lithium, and we've seen amazing spikes in lithium, Taurus didn't originally, it was too difficult for us, a little bit like rare earths. The market a number of years ago wasn't deep enough. You saw significant volatility in the price. We've recently done a fair bit of work internally on lithium, and we believe now the market is deep enough. And so we're sort of dusting off some papers and looking at various projects. I think really important to get the right types of how they're going to extract lithium, whether it's brine evaporation, whether it's spodumene. So that's really important to us to evaluate. We're certainly no experts at it yet, but lithium is going to be an amazing commodity going forward. You've got graphite, which I said we don't invest in. You've of course got nickel, you've got tin, you've got cobalt. Look, we're very interested as well in commodities like zinc from the base metal perspective, and their role still in things like wind turbines, in solar panels, and batteries. Yeah, look, I think it's going to be interesting. I think Scott Morrison's going over with his tin hat on. He's going to get beaten up, as will Minister Taylor, Angus Taylor. But they're both tough blokes, and they've got the right responses. And I think that we, Australia, have demonstrated. I mean, let's face it, we've got 1% of global emissions, but we have demonstrated that we have the capacity and the ability and the desire to lower our emissions. And those guys will get blown up. I mean, as we speak, Lena, it's, President Macron in France spoke last night to our Prime Minister Morrison. And as well as talking about the lack of trust from the drop subs deal, he said, I want to see Australia start to reduce coal production or coal export. Now, that's crazy that a country like France lectures to us. I lived in France for 4 years. It's a wonderful country. I've got a lot of great friends. There's a lot of sort of flaws in the French culture, might I say. But I'm the last person to lecture to France, and I don't want Morrison and Angus, being beaten up when they go over about sort of our coal exports and what have you. China's got 1,000 coal-fired power plants. They're building another 100. A lot of Asia is building it. One of the things I haven't heard about for a long time, later, a couple of years ago, I did was what we called the heli-coal plant. High energy, low emission. I haven't heard that expression for a long time, but they're the state-of-the-art coal-fired power plants that are being developed, and we have got the best, cleanest and highest energy coal. So it's crazy if we're talking about the world dropping emissions, that we're not using our coal. 6,000 kilocal at some instances in the Hunter Valley. And we're going to Indonesian coal, 4,000, 4,200, or Indian coal. Or dare I say it, they're going back to brown coal, lignites in Europe. It is crazy that we don't have a long future for coal in this country. Look, I certainly do. I'm a strong believer in nuclear power. Again, I lived in France for 4 years. They've got, people talk about 70%, I think it's about 80% of all French power comes from nuclear plants. You've got local French towns that bid to have a nuclear facility in their backyard because of what it brings to jobs. But we know that the state-of-the-art nuclear plants, extremely safe, and the technology is excellent. Now, we all know that we've got 2/3 of the world's uranium resources here in Australia. It is lunacy that we don't use that. It is lunacy that if we want to look at getting to carbon neutral and zero net emissions, that we aren't adopting nuclear. I understand the Prime Minister's view that it's got to be a bipartisan approach, and at this stage that Labor and the Labor leader Albanese won't support it. But I would really strongly recommend the Prime Minister and the government consider putting it as a referendum item when we have our election, our federal election next March or April, and let the people decide. Let the people, let Labor know where they want to see this issue. Look, I've known the Chief Executive for some time, probably going back 20 years. He was originally looking at exploration assets in France. But look, I looked at the project. I don't have technical background, but I showed it to some of my experienced geologists. They thought the mineralisation looked really interesting. That northern part of Spain, Cantabria, is great for communities, and they love mining. But I think that there's fantastic exploration upside. I joined around about the time they announced some fantastic drill results from surface. It's a brownfields project where there's been previous mining. You can expect some good results, and certainly the multiple stacked lenses of mineralisation looks really encouraging. So we're awaiting the second phase of drilling results, but we're waiting with bated breath.